I bought the most hated and loved car on the internet. Check it out. Don't worry about that little guy. Alright guys, so what you're looking at is my 1981 Chevrolet El Camino, the Conquista. It's funny to say, but it's great. So arguably these are one of the most hated and loved cars on the internet. They're very polarizing. I can't tell you how many times people have looked at me and said, hey, why did you buy that pile of crap? It's so disgusting. And then I've had tons of other people that are like, oh my god, I used to have an El Camino, or my brother had one, or they bring back tons of cool memories. I love those cars. It's just a really weird set of events because everybody either loves or absolutely hates these things. So this one, just to give you the spec on it, it is a V6 car. It is an air conditioning car. So it's got a lot of really cool stuff on it, except for that V6. And again, that's why that guy is going to be going in there. And maybe we'll start that in a little while. But this car was in a scrapyard, and we saved it from the scrapyard. So another one of those things with me is, you know, like my Avalanche, I like to save things, and saving things makes me feel amazing. It's amazing when you can take a car that was about to be scrapped and you can bring it back to life, and you can bring it back to life in a way that makes you feel good and makes other people feel good, and you can do it for a little to no money whatsoever. Like, I literally paid $750 for this car, which, go try to find an El Camino in halfway decent shape for $750. It was originally cream colored, the bodywork had been done and it had been primered, and I went ahead and just shot it with some flat black spray paint because we do pull it in and out here all day and I didn't want the primer getting damaged. So shot it with some spray paint. We're going to take care of the paint job a little bit later down the road, but for right now we want to get the drivetrain set and get everything done and good to go. So check out the interior on this thing too. It's actually not too bad. So it was originally a cream colored car. It was cream on the top and brown on the bottom. Ice cream paint job. Got the brown dash. The dash is pretty gnarly, but we can replace that. It's got the cool setup for the speedometer and everything else. Original steering wheel. Floors have already been patched on both sides. Seat, not terrible, but it does have some rips and tears in it, but it is the most comfortable thing on the planet. So we're going to be digging into the interior eventually. When I got the car, it didn't have any glass in it, so I had my guy Eric, good friend of mine that I went to high school with, he's a glass guy, put the rear glass in for me, which I got with the car. And then we went ahead and put a brand spanking new windshield in it. So it's like driving in high def. So we got a lot of other little things. We got the wiper cowl, it's here, but it's chrome, so I'm going to paint it. And then back here in the rear, we have both of the front and rear bumpers. We do have a little bit of rot right there, but the body of this car is not in the greatest of shape. It looks good and it's straight, but it's had a lot of repair work. It's got a ton of Bondo on it. And when I was going around just kind of dinging on it with different things, you can see right there, there's a spot where the Bondo came off, and it's just not in the greatest shape. So for me to do all the body work on it, I think would be ridiculous. It's just going to cost way too much money. And truth be told, it's not that valuable of a car to me. You know, somebody over here, normally there's supposed to be a pinch weld that runs right down here. And they cut that pinch weld out, but didn't do the body work properly. So there's a hole right there. There's a hole right there. This whole section up in here needs to be repaired. So, I mean, it does still need a lot of body work, and a lot of it was done in kind of a weird way. So undoing it is going to be very tedious and painful. So I don't think we're going to do it. But let me pop the hood for you guys so you can check out underneath the hood. So this car came factory with a 3.8 liter V6, which is pretty gutless, but believe it or not, it moves the car around. There it is. And one thing that I loved about this car was that it is completely original. Right down to the AC compressor. Everything in it is there. Everything in it's coming out, but it was nice to see that nobody had really messed with it. It was owned by an older gentleman, and you know, he really loved it until it started to rot away on him. Did some of the body work and then just lost the effort for the rest of it. So overall, it's a good car. Okay, so what engine did we get for said most hated car on the internet? The El Camino. Well, one of the things that I wanted to do with this build is not LS it. That was like the main goal, because LS has taken over everything. And granted, LS is a great platform, don't get me wrong. Super easy to work with, parts are everywhere, but it's just not my style. With this build, I was going for reliability, simplicity, and the ability to have limitless options when it comes to upgrading this setup. Now, LSs are great, however, in the upgrade process, you reach a brick wall where you then have to do a ton to the motor to get it to run right, or to get it to hold the power that you're looking to make. So we went with something a little bit different. So I decided to go with this guy. This is a Gen 6 454 from a 1999 Suburban K2500. Now, the reasoning for going with this particular motor was, number one, it's a Chevy big block. It's a 454. These engines have been around forever. This being a Gen 6 motor is going to give us the reliability that we're looking for. Because in the 99, and this goes for 95 to 2000, these have a roller cam, roller lifters, very similar to an LS style setup, and it's a very reliable motor. Now, one of the other things that was cool about this engine, it was originally fuel injected, and because it was fuel injected, they had more options when it came to compression ratios and timing and things of that nature. You could kind of bump things up a little bit because the emissions could be controlled better by the fuel injection system. So this engine is running a 9-to-1 compression, which is a little bit higher than what was previously had in the Gen 5s and the Mark 4s and all the other older big blocks, and it made a little bit more power. So the other nice thing about that is, with this particular setup that we have going on now, we've got an Edelbrock RPM air gap intake, we have a Brawler 650 carb, and before you guys go all crazy on the 650 carb, the bottom end of this engine is 100% stock. 650 CFM on a stock big block is more than enough. Now, if we decide to go cam and heads or even a camshaft, we are going to have to go bigger with the carburetor. But for the stock application that we're running now, a 650 CFM carb is just fine. So with this particular combination, and I thank Richard Holdener on YouTube for kind of, you know, breaking all this stuff down. This exact combination on a dyno makes about 375 horsepower and right around 480, 490 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot for an El Camino. That'll be more than enough, and It's going to idle smooth. It's going to run great. It's going to be super reliable. And guess what? Super easy to fix because we took away all of the fuel injection stuff. We went with a standard HEI distributor, which only needs literally this one wire. You put power to this one wire and it runs. That's all you need. So the simplicity is there, the reliability is there, the power is there. And then the final thing about this engine, it's a big block Chevy. Each one of those primary tubes for the headers is a 2-inch tube. That's bigger than some small cars' exhaust systems. And each tube is 2 inches with a 3.5-inch outlet. Now, again, thanks to Mr. Richard Holdener, and I'm going to keep mentioning him throughout because his videos have helped me so much in putting this engine combo together. All you have to do with this engine to make 1,000 horsepower is run about 16 pounds of boost to it. And in its stock form, it will handle 1,000 horsepower and over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque for as long as you want it to. And that's amazing. You can't do that with a small block or an LS or anything else. It'll hold 1,000 horsepower until it doesn't. This engine will live for 20 years at 1,000 horsepower with a factory bottom end in it. So that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I had that availability for modification. So if I decide to put a set of turbos on this, 1,000 horsepower at 16 pounds. If I put a roots blower on it, 1,000 horsepower at 16 pounds. If I put a centrifugal blower on it, 1,000 horsepower. If I put a 500 shot of nitrous on it, 1,000 horsepower. It doesn't matter what you do with these things. They're very stout. They're very strong. The Gen 6 is also a 4-bolt main, which I wanted to make sure I had. And it's just an all-out great motor. The versatility, the availability for parts, the availability for modifications, and the fact that it'll hold the modifications is absolutely incredible. So that's the reason we went with the big block. We could have gone LS. I have availability to LSs all over the place. I could get them like nothing. You could run a stock computer and you could run all the stock electronics and you could have the reliability that you would get out of this big block. But at the same point, there's a lot of wiring that needed to be done. You know, we'd have to wire in the ECU. We'd have to wire in the harness. We'd have to wire in the whole system, whereas this is literally one wire. If I put a wire to the starter and a wire to the distributor, this thing starts and runs no problem. So this is going to be amazing. And then in the future, it gives us the ability to upgrade to whatever we want. Turbos, blower, supercharger, you know, we could do fuel injection on it. We could do whatever we want to this engine, and this car is always going to be reliable. It's always going to be simple to work on, and there's going to be parts available for it everywhere. Like I put a starter in this thing, got it from O'Reilly's. Put an oil pan on it, got it from O'Reilly's. Dipstick tube, O'Reilly's. Summit Racing has everything I need for this engine. There's tons and tons of information out there, Richard Holdener being one of the best ones. When it comes to, okay, how much power do I want to make? Do I want to make 500? Well, there's a combo for that. How about 6, 7, 8, 9, or 1,000? Well, there's combos for all that. All been proven, all been track tested, and everything is great. So it's going to be amazing. Okay, so now all we have to do is fill this thing with fuel. We got a jump pack hooked up to it, and we got our one wire, and it'll fire right up. All right, so we're just filling up the bowls on the carb, and now I'm gonna hook up our one wire. We got our starter wire. Kick on the jump box, and here we go. Not too shabby. Fires right up and runs. Just throw a little bit more gas down its throat because it literally ran out of gas in that little bit. I'm not going to run it too long because we don't have any coolant in it, but All right, one more time. See how she goes. See, that's all it takes. One wire, a little bit of gas, the thing fires right up. And it runs amazing. And you heard it. Well, it probably blew the mic away, but she's a loud one. So, runs great. Hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, so you see that thing runs with literally one wire and some gas. And so all you need is literally just this one wire to the distributor. You hook this thing up to power, and then you have, you know, your positive to the starter, your ground to the engine block, and man, these things fire right off. So this thing's gonna be great in the car. Now, I did a tiny little bit of carb tuning on it. I put a different power valve in it because this was originally set up for a drag car with a small block, and this is a big block. So we had to do a little bit of jetting to it, nothing crazy, and it actually runs pretty good, but man, is it a fuel hog. It literally emptied both bowls in just that short little time that we were running it. So it's definitely gonna need some fuel. We have a solution for that, but it runs great. So now we just need to take this and put it in that. And then once it's in there, we'll have a crazy car. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Just kind of an introduction to what's going on with the El Camino. I'm sure you guys have seen it in the background, but you're probably gonna see it a whole lot more. We're going to be building this thing in the next couple of months, getting it on the road. My goal is to have it on the road by the end of June. So I have July, August, September, October to kind of play around with it, drive it around. So, okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll see you on the next one. And who knows, maybe we'll be putting the motor in the El Camino. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. And by the way, today's Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day to those of you that have served. You know, my father was military, so I have a soft spot for you guys. So thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.